So I read a comment the other day in the comment section of one of my videos, and it said that I shouldn't hate the other countries in order to promote China. So this sort of made me a little bit confused and maybe forced me to stop, think and reflect on how I'm getting some of my message across. First of all, I'm here talking highly about life in China because it is a great place to live and it's got many things going for it. I do live here and I have done for 8 years. So obviously I'm going to talk about China, and I will always talk highly of China because when you visit and if you read into the history and take time to even understand a little bit of more recent history, then you cannot help but admire how far this country has developed over such a short period of time. And in that time, they've spent a whole heap of the money that they have made, the country has made, on making life easier for their people, and in many different ways, from parks, infrastructure, metro links, and so on. And that also includes bringing millions of people, over 800 million people, out of poverty. Now that has to be a good thing. Even the most ardent hater of China must accept that that is a good thing. But then I am never sure with some people. They just seem to hate. Hate just seems to be in their core, no matter what they see or what they're told about China. They just hate China for some reason, probably blinded by their own internal propaganda, and they often don't even know why they hate China. When you ask them, they just do. Some people just gotta have a hate figure, I guess, and that barrier helps maybe offset how bad they probably feel about themselves. A bit of deflection helps people, politicians, countries, sometimes avoid the obvious. I'm more of a guy who is into peace, and if I could honestly sing and play an instrument, I think I would try and write some peace songs as opposed to love songs, peace songs. I can't do either, so I make videos, and it's my artistic expression. So this content, me talking here, my video channel, is just me, nothing else. No one's paying me. It's just my artistic expression. Think about China's development this way. America had a magnificent development phase from, say, 1880 to round about 1980, or be generous, up to the year 2000. And in that time, they built massive infrastructure projects, invented loads of stuff, built wonderful cities, helped accelerate the rise of many industries, from food, pharmaceutical, advertising industry, financial industry, all the way through to space and big tech. Oh, and also the military industry, which obviously they were in the prime position to do so after the Second World War. And after the war, America was also the only functioning economy at that time, so the dollar became the world's currency, and with that they set about to rebuild the world, which is a good thing. At that time, America built up a middle class that had an appetite for the new and the wonderful, and they consumed stuff like it was going out of fashion, because obviously at that time they could afford to do that. They were making a lot of money. They were the good old days, and many of the people in America now, they yearn back for these days. But back then, days of high taxation, corporate and personal tax back then was high, and the money was spread actually back into society through investment, a bit like China now. That growth, that expansion took America about 120 years, and yep, of course they're still developing now, possibly at a slower pace though. This same development has happened here in China, and it's taken about 40, 50 years. And in my opinion, it's exceeded what America had created in many areas. And what China has achieved over the years, they've done it with little to no conflict or wars. And just thinking maybe that's the key difference. Just saying. I would also say that China has surpassed the UK, what the UK had built back in the Empire days. I think China surpassed the UK many years ago, to be fair. Of course, Britain's time was of a different generation and era. And don't get me wrong, a lot of the modern world was started from the sparks of the British Empire and the Industrial Revolution. But again, their days are long gone. You cannot change yesterday. Excuse me. The UK has repeatedly damaged itself by some of the worst internal and external policies I have ever seen, and it's a country that, in my opinion, needs a new direction. It's in a declining sort of force, but the funny thing is, most people in the UK don't realise that it is a declining force in the world stage. These people live in the past, if you ask me. I've just been to a gate here, a city gate, Yongdongmen Gate. It's on another video. It's great, and I recommend you watch that video. Sorry, sore throat, but I'm just taking some time to chill in the park, hence this video. But here's the rub for you. Here's the thing to think about my channel and some of the things that I talk about. I don't need to big up China. They can do it for themselves. They're smart, proud, humble people that actually let their actions do the talking for them. And that's one thing that I've learned living here. Less talk, they do more action. I'm sure my little voice makes no difference to that. And to be honest, I don't want to make a difference to that. All I want to do is help some people in the West think a little bit clearer so that they can pressure our leaders, their leaders, into stopping some of the current and future wars and conflicts. Admittedly, it's a little bit personal for me because I've got my son and my daughter, and I don't want them or any of my family, in fact any of your family members, to be involved in any wars and the horrors of war. And no, I am more biased to the countries I'm familiar with when I talk, because that's where most of my family and friends and relatives live. So often I compare to the UK and America. Yes, of course, I have travelled in Europe and I love Europe. I have always appreciated America. It's an amazing place with a very exciting, diverse culture, and you cannot help but admire what used to be known as the land of the free. Now, I've been to America many times, and every single time I have loved it there. It is always a different experience each time that I travel there and visit. Very much a different experience from travelling to Europe or Asia, and certainly different from travelling to China for obvious reasons. Safety being one of them. But in my opinion, America has lost its way. It has some very deep structural, financial and social problems that I think it has to overcome. And it's lost the moral compass, the high ground that it did arguably have. And it's losing that, I think, because of its more aggressive foreign policy and some of the decisions it's made this century. For me, something has gone wrong with America. And for me, really disappointing, because I think it's a missed opportunity, because they can be such a positive force in the world, a force for incredibly good things. Maybe I'm just a little bit romantic, but I think America could be a fantastic positive force, and it has been. Does America still have time to turn things around? I'm not sure. And that's what terrifies me the most, because I do think that there is a mentality in the governing elites in America which is very much more of a spoilt child, where they cannot learn to share, that kind of mentality of if I cannot have it, then nobody will have it. It also feels like America is maybe pulling itself apart. And there is this new movie that I'm looking forward to coming out. It's coming out quite soon, I think. It's called Civil War. And it looks like it is a sobering movie for many sensible Americans. Maybe you could watch that. Tell me what you think. Now, the UK is a place that I also love dearly. It is my home country. And yes, I would like to see Scotland be independent, because I believe that it has so much more to offer. So much more to offer the world, in fact. And it has already done so. And if you look at the historical contribution from Scotland to the world, for a wee nation of, say, 5.5 million people, then I would say it's pretty impressive what Scotland has contributed to the world over the years. But the UK, in my opinion, has declined a lot under this current government. They have, again in my opinion, mismanaged the country in so many ways that it is just impossible to list. It is actually quite embarrassing sometimes. And even here in China, some people ask me, Why is the British government making so many erratic and nonsensical, stupid mistakes for political choices? And I just shake my head in disbelief. The government in the UK has an approval rating hovering around 20%. I think in the USA it's also roughly the same. In fact, I remember reading somewhere that the approval rating for the American Congress was at 18%. Germany's approval rating, Scholz, his approval rating is about 19-20% as well. And the majority of the population in America would actually like an alternative choice to Biden and Trump, rather than them going head to head yet again. Very elderly gentlemen, and I'm not sure what they can actually give that's not different. And I think America needs something different. I would also say Europe is much the same. I love Europe. It's a great place to visit. Being a tourist in Europe is amazing, although not the most safest place in the world. But I also sense a lot of people in Europe are very, very, very pissed off. So there is this massive, massive unhappiness and frustration in the West with how the governments act versus what the people want. And forgive me as I drink again. I had a little bit of COVID, so I'm just getting back over that. So people in the West are getting frustrated with their governments, and that is, for me, a troublesome indication for something to boil over. I said in a previous video that 2024 was going to be a year of political turmoil. 2025 would be a year for extreme financial turmoil. And if we're not careful, either or both could spark further global conflict. I think these things are accelerating, and that's before I even factor in the situation with artificial intelligence, which will absolutely impact on how we work, rest and play. All of this increasing tension, it worries me, and it should worry you too. Here in China, people are much more aligned behind the government, and why wouldn't they? Because many people have lived through a massive period of development and investment, and China isn't perfect. No country's perfect, but the people here continue to live through a similar pace of development that they've already came through, and from the population's perspective, a development that they can see, they can touch and they can feel, and one that is happening in a world of peace, despite many provocations. Now, my last thought here, the type of person within the usual group of haters on my comments box below, and by all means, please leave a comment in the sections below. But the type of people that I often just ignore, but that can really boil my blood, are the ones that I call the white knights. I call them that because they usually leave comments and are very condescending to the Chinese people. They're displaying an arrogance of, I don't know, it's as if they're riding in to save the Chinese people from their current situation. And it is such an ignorant position to take. They have no idea what China is like, and they probably should spend their energy course correcting their own country's situation. But then I sometimes think they're just regurgitating what they get fed on propaganda machines. I often wonder why some people fall for propaganda more than others. And I think it's a bit like hypnotism. Some people are just much more easy to hypnotise. Remember, and I don't know if you remember this, but I remember these hypnotist shows, and I don't know if they still do them, but they were very, very popular for a few years when I was younger, and they often ended up with the easy to hypnotise people, because I believe there is people who are easier to hypnotise. Often ended up with them on stage with their trousers around their ankles, their thumb in their mouth, and them walking like a baby. Pause for a second and think about that. That's the people that swallow the propaganda. Anyway, for me, in my humble opinion, and before my throat backs up. Every nation working together with some healthy competition is always the best solution for me. And if we did that, can you imagine what we would do as a human race? We could land on the moon for real. I'm kidding, for real. Now that for me would be exciting. And incidentally, a lot of people think the Earth is here and the moon is there. They're actually like that. Should look that up. Anyway, this is me, Ian, here in Beijing, next to Yongdamen Gate. Saying to you, look after yourself, look after your family, your friends, look after your community, the elderly. And let's pray. Not that I'm religious, but let's pray, or even pray for peace. This is me, Ian in Beijing. Peace out. Catch you in the next video.